Julio Foolio came to Tampa last month to celebrate his birthday and was shot and killed that same night.
To announce the arrest of 3 people in the deadly shooting of Charles Jones, also known by his stage name of Julio Foolio.
Tourist headlines over the last couple years were shot and killed overnight.
The life of the infamous Gangster brothers who killed Julio Foolio. In the heart of Jacksonville, Florida, a city known for its vibrant cultural landscape, the streets also harbor a darker side, one marked by violence, gang rivalry, and the unforgiving pursuit of power. Within these urban battlegrounds, the lives of many young men are shaped by the harsh realities of street life, where survival often depends on navigating a world governed by unwritten codes and fierce loyalties. This volatile environment has given rise to a generation of artists who channel their experiences into music, using it as both an outlet for expression and a means of survival. Among these artists was Julio Foolio, a rapper whose rise to prominence was as swift as it was perilous, and whose life became a stark reflection of the world he rapped about. Julio Foolio, born Charles Jones, was a product of Jacksonville's most troubled neighborhoods, where the threat of violence loomed large over everyday life. From a young age, he was acutely aware of the dangers that came with growing up in a community riddled with gang activity. These experiences would become the foundation of his music, as he used his lyrics to paint vivid portraits of the struggles, fears, and anger that defined his environment. Through his music, Foolio gave a voice to the voiceless, speaking directly to those who lived the same harsh realities he did. His rise in the rap scene was marked by a raw authenticity that resonated with fans, making him a symbol of resilience in the face of adversity. However, Foolio's ascent in the rap world was not without its challenges. As his popularity grew, so too did the attention of those who saw his success as a threat. In the competitive and often dangerous world of gang-affiliated rap, Foolio's lyrics, which frequently depicted the brutal realities of street life, were interpreted by some as direct provocations. These tensions were not just confined to diss tracks or social media spats. They often spilled over into real life, where rivalries were settled not with words, but with violence. The streets that had once inspired Foolio's music now became a stage for deadly confrontations, as rival gang members sought to silence him and assert their own dominance. At the heart of this escalating conflict were the notorious Gangster brothers, figures who had carved out a reputation for themselves through ruthless ambition and a willingness to eliminate any perceived threats to their power. Their lives were inextricably linked to the very streets that Foolio rapped about, and they viewed his success as a challenge to the authority they had worked so hard to establish. What began as a clash of egos and territorial disputes soon escalated into a deadly feud, with both sides refusing to back down. As the tension mounted, it became clear that this was more than just a battle over music or respect. It was a fight for survival in a world where the stakes were life and death. This script delves into the lives of Julio Foolio and the Gangster brothers, tracing the events that led to their tragic collision and examining the devastating impact of a world where music and violence are inextricably intertwined. Background of Julio Foolio. Julio Foolio, born Charles Jones in 1998, was raised in one of Jacksonville, Florida's most volatile neighborhoods. The environment in which he grew up was fraught with challenges: poverty, violence, and a pervasive gang culture that loomed over the community like a shadow. These harsh realities were not just background noise for Foolio, they were the very fabric of his existence, shaping his worldview from a young age. The struggles he witnessed and endured became deeply ingrained in him, influencing the raw, unfiltered nature of the music he would later create. Unlike many artists who crafted personas to fit the rap industry mold, Foolio's music was a direct reflection of his life experiences. His lyrics were his truth. From his early teens, Foolio began channeling his pain and frustration into music, finding solace in the creative process. His tracks, characterized by their gritty realism and emotional depth, quickly garnered attention within his community. Songs like Dead Ops and When I See You offered listeners a window into the relentless violence and loss that plagued his life. These tracks were more than just music. They were narratives of survival, survival, stories that resonated with many who had walked similar paths. Through his vivid storytelling, Foolio captured the essence of life in the streets, both the raw emotion and the stark brutality of it all. His music was at once a lament for those lost to violence and a defiant proclamation of resilience. As Julio Foolio's music gained popularity, it became clear that he was more than just another rapper. He was a voice for his generation, particularly for those in Jacksonville's marginalized communities. His lyrics spoke to the pain, fear, and anger that so many young people in his city experienced daily. He articulated the struggles of his peers in a way that felt authentic, bridging the gap between the often romanticized portrayal of street life in mainstream media and the grim reality of living it. His rise to fame was not just about music. It was about giving a platform to the stories of the unheard, bringing the issues faced by his community into the spotlight. However, with this newfound visibility came increased scrutiny and danger. The more Foolio's star rose, the more he became a target. The competitive nature of the rap scene, especially within the context of gang culture, meant that his success was not celebrated by all. For some, his fame was seen as a challenge, a threat to their own standing in the streets. The diss tracks that Foolio and his rivals exchanged were more than artistic expressions. They were declarations of war. The lyrics were laced with personal vendettas, coded messages, and threats that further inflamed existing tensions. As Foolio's music continued to gain traction, so too did the animosity towards him, setting the stage for an inevitable and tragic confrontation that would forever alter the landscape of Jacksonville's rap scene. Gangster Brothers' early life. The Gangster Brothers, known by their feared street names, grew up in a neighborhood where violence was a daily reality. Their early lives were marked by instability, with poverty and neglect shaping their worldview from a young age. Lacking guidance at home, they turned to the streets, where they quickly learned that survival depended on embracing the harsh rules of street life, where power was asserted through force and respect was earned through intimidation. As they grew older, the brothers became deeply entrenched in gang culture. They joined a local gang that dominated their neighborhood, seeing it as a natural progression in their lives. Their early criminal activities, including drug trafficking, armed robbery, and extortion, quickly earned them a reputation as ruthless enforcers. Their willingness to engage in violence set them apart, solidifying their status within the gang and making them feared figures in the community. The brothers' rise within the gang was swift, driven by their ruthless efficiency and natural leadership. They became key players in the gang's operations, orchestrating hits on rivals and managing drug distribution networks. Through years of violent confrontations and criminal enterprises, they hardened into formidable figures whose names became synonymous with fear and power. As their infamy grew, it was only a matter of time before they would cross paths with others equally driven by ambition, setting the stage for deadly confrontations. The rise of their criminal enterprise. The brothers' rise within the criminal underworld was marked by a series of escalating confrontations and strategic moves. They quickly gained a reputation for their willingness to use violence to resolve disputes, which earned them both respect and fear. Their criminal enterprise expanded, involving drug sales and extortion, leading to significant financial gains. As they became more notorious, their influence spread beyond their immediate neighborhood, attracting attention from law enforcement and rival gangs alike. The brothers cultivated alliances with other gang members, creating a network that bolstered their power. However, their success came at a price, as conflicts with other gangs became increasingly violent. The feud with Julio Foolio. The feud between Julio Foolio and the Gangster Brothers was not just a clash of personalities, but a collision of two powerful forces vying for dominance in Jacksonville's streets. As Foolio rose to prominence in the rap scene, his success was not just a matter of personal achievement, but a symbol of power that the Gangster Brothers could not ignore. To them, Foolio's music, which vividly depicted the violence violence and struggles of street life was more than just artistic expression. It was seen as a direct challenge to their authority. The brothers, who had long controlled their neighborhood through fear and violence, perceived Foolio's growing influence as a threat to their reign, believing that his lyrics glorified the very life they had fought to control, thus undermining their position. The rivalry between Foolio and the brothers quickly escalated into a war of words, with each side using diss tracks to send pointed messages. These tracks were more than just music. They were verbal assaults, laced with personal insults, threats, and thinly veiled references to real-life conflicts. Foolio, known for his sharp lyrical abilities, did not shy away from confronting his enemies head-on in his songs, further inflaming the brothers' animosity. In response, the brothers used their own connections within the local rap scene to counterattack, creating a toxic atmosphere where every lyric was scrutinized for hidden meanings and potential provocations. The tension grew with each release, turning what might have been a competitive rivalry into something far more dangerous. Social media became the stage where this feud played out in real time, amplifying every insult, every threat, and every provocation. The platforms that had once been used by Foolio to connect with his fans now became the battlegrounds for a deadly conflict. Videos filled with taunts, challenges, and explicit threats went viral, capturing the attention not just of local residents, but of a much wider audience. The feud spilled out from the digital world into the streets, where the stakes were far higher. Fans and followers of both sides took to social media to declare their loyalties, further polarizing the community. The streets of Jacksonville became a war zone, with confrontations, skirmishes, and acts of violence erupting as the lines between the two camps were drawn more sharply than ever. What started as a feud between a rapper and a gang turned into a citywide conflict, where music and violence intertwined, pushing the rivalry towards an inevitable and tragic conclusion. The incident leading to Julio Foolio's death. The rivalry between Julio Foolio and the Gangster brothers had been simmering for months, each side escalating the tension with taunts, diss tracks, and increasingly violent encounters. On a fateful night, this tension reached its devastating conclusion. Foolio had been working late at a recording studio, laying down tracks that were destined to capture the raw emotion of his life on the streets. As he stepped out of the studio, the air was thick with anticipation, as if the city itself knew something ominous was about to unfold. The brothers, who had been carefully plotting their move, were lying in wait. They had received word of Foolio's whereabouts and saw this as the perfect opportunity to eliminate a rival who had become too prominent, too defiant in his success. The ambush was swift and brutal. As Foolio made his way to his car, gunfire erupted from the shadows, shattering the night's silence. Witnesses later described a scene of chaos where bullets flew indiscriminately and the air was filled with the sound of panic and screams. Foolio, never one to back down, tried to defend himself, drawing his own weapon in a desperate bid for survival. But the brothers had come prepared, and their numbers and firepower overwhelmed him. In those final moments, Foolio's resilience, the very trait that had brought him so far, was no match for the calculated violence unleashed upon him. He was struck multiple times, and despite his best efforts to fight back, he collapsed, succumbing to his injuries as the life drained from him on the cold pavement. The news of Julio Foolio's death reverberated far beyond the streets of Jacksonville. It was a gut-wrenching blow to the community and the music world alike. Fans who had followed his rise from the gritty neighborhoods of the city to the heights of rap stardom were left devastated. Social media was flooded with tributes as people expressed their grief over the loss of an artist who had given voice to their struggles and aspirations. His music, once a beacon of resilience and defiance, now took on a tragic new meaning, as every lyric seemed to echo with the reality of his untimely end. Meanwhile, the Gangster brothers remained unrepentant, viewing Foolio's death not as a senseless tragedy, but as a necessary act to maintain their dominance. In their world, world where respect was measured in bloodshed, they saw their actions as a statement of power, a message to anyone who might challenge their authority. The streets had claimed another life, and the cycle of violence continued, leaving a community to mourn the loss of one of its brightest stars. Aftermath and legacy. In the wake of Julio Foolio's death, the Gangster brothers faced intensified scrutiny from law enforcement. Investigations into their criminal activities accelerated, leading to arrests and prosecutions. The community was left grappling with the implications of such violence, as discussions around gang culture and its impact on the youth intensified. Julio Foolio's legacy lived on through his music, which continued to inspire and resonate with fans long after his passing. His story became emblematic of the struggles faced by many young artists, navigating the dangerous intersection of street life and the music industry. The ongoing cycle of violence in Jacksonville raised questions about the broader issues of systemic inequality and the lack of opportunities for youth in similar environments. In conclusion, the lives of Julio Foolio and the infamous Gangster brothers serve as a cautionary tale about the consequences of violence and the pursuit of power. In a world where music and street life collide, the stories of those involved remind us of the fragility of life and the impact of choices made in moments of desperation. As we reflect on these events, it becomes clear that the true cost of gang violence extends far beyond individual lives, affecting entire communities and future generations.